One of the more challenging skills in self-management and emotional intelligence is self-regulation. Self-regulation is the ability for you to control your emotional response sets. The two areas that I'd really like you to think about today in this scope are, first of all, lashing out when you feel hurt or wronged. I mean, imagine a situation where in a meeting, the director of sales or the VP of sales says, you know what, I could sell a whole lot more if our operations person, you, was able to deliver the product in a timely and satisfactory manner, and says that in front of the CEO and the CFO and a whole bunch of other folks. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, you know, the natural response is to arch my back and lash back out and defend our position and, you know, maybe even say something like, well, if you didn't oversell product constantly, we wouldn't be in this situation. If you didn't overcommit delivery times, we wouldn't be where we are now. Unfortunately, if you think about that, those kind of responses don't do you any good, and in fact, many times cause you greater anxiety and heartache later down the road. Good emotional intelligence and good self-regulation says that when you're feeling hurt, when you're feeling stung, that is not the time to respond or lash out. Similar situation, imagine getting a really terse, almost accusatory kind of email from your boss at 9 o'clock at night. I know it's really, really tempting to sit down at that keyboard or on your handheld device and fire off a sharp defensive response back, but that's not going to be very productive for you. In both of those cases, whether attacked in a meeting or attacked via an email, the best course of action is to step back, think about your response, and don't respond immediately when you're emotionally charged up. The other situation, the other big piece of self-regulation and self-control that I want you to think about is understanding your hot buttons. Hot buttons are those events or those individuals that evoke a sharp, negative emotional response from you. You know, there are those folks in the world that are absolute professional hot button pushers. Now, here's where it becomes so important that we understand these. First of all, we have to know what our hot button events and hot button issues are. Typically, adults have between 5 and 7 of those kind of events that they can identify relatively easily. Behind that, we have to understand that when we respond to our hot buttons being pushed, there's a really significant transfer of power that occurs. When we respond and react poorly and fly off the handle or become really, really disappointed, power leaves us and goes to that individual or that situation that's pushing our hot button. We're giving others control over us by our reaction to those hot buttons. So we need to understand our hot buttons, and then when we see that situation beginning to arise, we have to practice some self-discipline and self-control and tell ourselves we're not going to react to that. And if we aren't really good at that quite yet, then we have to try to avoid those hot button situations altogether.